Welcome to Across Africa, our weekly roundup of stories from across the continent. I'm Georgia Calvin-Smith, and coming up, there was an exultant reaction in Botswana after the High Court did away with homophobic laws. The ruling comes less than a month after Kenya upheld its legislation criminalizing same-sex relationships. Also, in search of a sweet deal, we look at the rise of the rewards of crowdfunding by heading to a bakery in Senegal. And Israeli investigative journalists say that DR Congo's former president spied on opposition leaders. Joseph Kabila is accused of having used a private intelligence agency called Black Cube. But first, Botswana's High Court has decriminalized same-sex relationships. Laws that punished gay sex with up to 7 years in prison were rejected as being unconstitutional. The courtroom erupted in clapping and excitement as the ruling was passed down. It comes less than a month after Kenya's High Court upheld its homophobic laws.
It's the end of a law that is more than 100 years old. On Tuesday, Botswana's High Court ruled to overturn 19th century laws that criminalized homosexuality. In its ruling, the court said, quote, that human dignity is harmed when minority groups are marginalized, adding that laws that banned same-sex relations were discriminatory. For LGBT activists, the decision was just common sense.
The arguments for decriminalization are basically the right to expression, freedom of expression, and the right to privacy, the right to equal protection of the law. And then the argument against, they said this is a Western agenda, like homosexuality is not, it's an African, and they see it as an alien thing.
Homosexuality had been illegal in Botswana since the late 1800s, back when it was called Bechuanaland. The laws were introduced by British colonial rulers. Up until decriminalization, people who engaged in same-sex relations could face up to 7 years in jail. Homophobia is still deeply rooted across Africa, where same-sex relations are outlawed in more than 30 countries. Just last month, Kenya's Supreme Court refused to strike down similar colonial-era laws that criminalized homosexuality.
Well, across Africa, crowdfunding is becoming an increasingly valuable tool for small businesses looking to expand. In Senegal, firms raised over 20 million euros this way last year. Nicolas Chemin tells us more.
It's a structural problem in sub-Saharan Africa. Many small businesses find it hard to borrow money from Main Street banks. So they resort to crowdfunding, like here in Touba, Senegal's second biggest city. It helped fund 40% of this bakery.
It's about getting the maximum number of people to support the project and also to provide inspiration for other projects. That is the idea and the path that really guided us. We could have done it alone, but we wanted to show that crowdfunding is an important lever that impacts our economies.
The aim of the project is also to curb the exodus of young people who risk their lives trying to migrate to Europe.
Every day our children, our brothers, get on boats looking for better lives elsewhere. They all have ties to their homes, to their families, and if they leave, it is because they can't find a job at home to give them a decent life, plan for the future, build a family. So our goal is to create jobs. That's important.
Customers of the bakery that was open thanks to crowdfunding are delighted with the result.
Before, I used to go to Dakar or send someone to Dakar to get good pastries, but now I don't have to anymore. Now I come here every day or every 2 days to get my supply of pastries.
Last year in Senegal, crowdfunding projects raised a total of 23 million euros. The country on the continent where such projects are booming is South Africa, which raised in 2018 more than 200 million euros.
Israeli investigative journalists accused DR Congo's former president of having spied on opposition leaders. Joseph Kabila allegedly hired the services of a private firm to root out dissenters. Congo's opposition says that it's a further indication of the opacity of Kabila's years in charge.
Did Congo's former president Joseph Kabila use a private firm to spy on opposition leaders after 2015? That is what UVDA, an investigative program for Israel's Channel 12, has alleged. It claims he used the company Black Cube that employs former members of Mossad, Israel's secret service. They reportedly hired out a whole floor in a luxurious Kinshasa hotel where they had their headquarters. A little earlier, we spoke to opposition leader Martin Fayulu.
These are very serious accusations. We demand an investigation so we can know more about this issue. If it's true, then severe sanctions must be taken against Mr. Kabila.
Joseph Kabila's advisors told us they did not wish to comment. The firm Black Cube says it will file a lawsuit against Channel 12. Kabila's mandate should have ended in 2016, but he stayed on until January 2019. The new president is Félix Tshisekedi, but Kabila remains a key player in Congo. His allies still dominate the army, the intelligence service, the National Assembly, and the Senate.
Now, many of the hundreds of thousands of people killed by malaria every year are in Africa. An estimated 250,000 children die of the disease every year on the continent. A new vaccine could significantly reduce risks of infections in kids. In clinical trials, Mosquirix was found to prevent about 4 in 10 malaria cases. Ghana is one of the countries that's part of the pilot rollout.
In a country that had over 5 million confirmed cases of malaria last year, it's hoped that this new measure will reduce the risk of children contracting the disease.
I believe that if we perform the injection early, it will help us not to have to rush in the future and spend so much money on disease prevention. If we prevent it from the start, it will help.
The Ewim Polyclinic Health Centre in Cape Coast recorded over 1,000 cases of malaria in children under the age of 5 last year. Ellen Apraku, a maternity ward nurse, is tasked with explaining the benefits of the vaccine to local mothers. She highlights the considerable economic benefits alongside the health benefits of the new treatment.
You see, right now, the malaria treatment is very costly. I think it's very costly. And right now, there's no money. So if we were able to prevent it, at least the parents will have much money to take good care of their children.
It's a point of view that's shared by other healthcare professionals in Ghana.
So economically, when you get malaria, the family's income loses some income because the time that you spend to look after the child, you have used the time for other things. So it will go a long way. This vaccine is able to reduce malaria in children under 5. I'm sure it will help.
The Mosquirix vaccine is to be used as a complementary tool, augmenting but not replacing measures such as insecticide-treated bed nets and anti-mosquito sprays. The aim in Ghana is to vaccinate 120,000 children per year over the next 3 years.
Now, more and more Ivorian farmers are taking a bird's eye view in looking after their crops. Drones are being used to help with the oversight and management of sprawling farms crucial to the country's agricultural sector. Take a look.
First, you have to fill up a drone's water tank. Then you control it so that it waters a particular area of the field. This new technology is increasingly popular in Ivory Coast. Drones are not only used for irrigation, but also to collect data about the crops.
Based on data received from the drone, we're able to assess the state of the crops or areas that need a boost in growth. And we compare and contrast to find out if there are issues around water irrigation or issues around crop fertility and so on.
Agriculture is a major part of Ivory Coast's economy. According to the World Bank, it accounts for 21% of GDP and more than 75% of exports. The use of drones is on the rise, and not only in agriculture. Some businesses are now assembling and programming them in the country.
It was challenging for us at the beginning, but it's become easier over time. If we have all the pieces here, we can assemble up to 4 drones a day.
Drones, along with sensors and GPS devices, make up what is known as precision agriculture. The aim is to optimize crop growth and also to conserve resources such as soil and water.
eSwatini, formerly known as Swaziland, is known for a particular strain of cannabis called Swazi Gold. But for farmers who rely on the crop, many are struggling to make sales because of a change in the law in South Africa, which has greenlit the growth and use of consumption for private use there. Fraser Jackson tells us more.
Buso has been growing cannabis for 14 years in eSwatini, the country formerly known as Swaziland. There is a potent cannabis strain here known as Swazi Gold. He's not allowed to grow it, so sometimes the police arrest him.
This thing is a game like to me, because I farm, sometimes some cops come and burn it.
He sells his product mostly to South Africa, but he's worried that demand will fall because South Africa now allows the private growth and consumption of cannabis.
I need a man from the ganja to make something bigger on my feet at home, to farm maize and beans, you see.
A former South African cannabis dealer underlined the quality of Swazi Gold.
They're good guys, they produce good product. They know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time.
Attitudes towards cannabis are changing in Africa. Last year, Lesotho became the first country on the continent to legalize the production of marijuana for medical use, with Zimbabwe following suit shortly after. According to the UN, more than 10,000 tons of cannabis are produced in Africa every year.
Well, that's all we have time for now on Across Africa. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.